We're back out here at the Big Lake once again, and today we're talking about the surprising locations those bass are actually in this time of year. And spoiler alert, it's not where you think they are. Stick around, you're gonna like this one. Got him! Ooh, that's a pretty good fish. That's a pretty good fish right there. Tearing them up on the wacky rig, kids. Ooh. Ooh, come here, you. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing, and in the heart of winter, it's often been said that those bass, they're pulled off the shore and they're out deep. They're either suspended or they've got their bellies way down in the mud, and they're pretty much inaccessible, especially for the bank anglers. You know, that's what we've heard, that's what we've been told. And truth be told, there is a pretty good population of bass that do pull away from the bank when that water gets cold. They do indeed go out deep, but it's not all of them. In fact, a large, very large population of bass always remains shallow all year round. And those are the bass that I want to talk about today, because whether you're a bank angler, whether you're a boat angler, those bass are accessible and they're catchable. They're generally easier to get to bite, and you don't need a bunch of electronics to find them. They are in some very easy to find, very well defined locations. You know, you've seen the last few videos. You've seen where I've been catching them on wacky rigs and Ned rigs and things of that nature, working them very slow. But I've also been catching them very skinny, right? You've seen that I've been in 2 feet of water or less, pulling out some very nice fish. And I know what you're saying. I already know what you're going to say. You're saying, well, Lowbrow, didn't you say that the pre-spawn was happening in South Mississippi? And that's true. That's absolutely true. But if you see this footage right here of old Lowbrow catching some bass from the bank using a weightless fluke, that was actually right off of this spot right here. And when I recorded that video, well, that was late December. So that's been about a month ago, a month and a half ago, when I recorded that footage. And even then, those bass were shallow. Right out here, not more than a couple of feet deep. There's a lot of vegetation out here, and those bass were not only shallow and accessible from the bank, they were active. They were splashing, they were busting up, and that's why the weightless fluke was such an effective presentation. In just a couple of minutes, well, I had caught 2 or 3 very nice ones. One in particular was exceptionally nice. So, you know, always be aware there are bass near the bank. And it's not just in South Mississippi. I've had people in upstate New York tell me, people in northern Pennsylvania, and people in Ohio. They're telling me that even under the ice, those big girls are moving up shallow. They do it every year. They are expected to move up shallow. As one of my commenters told me, it's a thing that the old timers know, that they expect that those bass are going to move up shallow and stay there while the ice is still on the lake. So those bass in a lot of fisheries, and if you're fortunate enough to have a fishery like mine that isn't covered in hard water, it's pretty easy to catch bass from the bank and pretty shallow from the boat if you know what to look for. And you have to think, like I said, you've got to put yourself in the mindset of those bass. And right about now, they're getting ready to key off for the pre-spawn. In the Big Lake, the pre-spawn is already underway. Even though the water temperature is about 7 degrees lower than what it normally is for this time of year, we're still in that mid-50s range when it should be in 60, 62. So we're still a little bit colder than what we normally are. But those bass, they don't care. They are in pre-spawn mode, and it shows. For the past 2 or 3 weeks or even longer, I'm seeing color return to those bass. You know, in the dead of winter, when you catch bass out deep, like we've talked about before, they almost look silver. They almost look ghostly. And that's because, well, they're not getting a lot of sun. They're deep in the water and they've got their bellies to the mud or they're suspending. But a lot of times they come up shallow. And you see that they're shallow. They've got some really good color to them. And even today, I was out here. I was working, you know, some of my favorite presentations. Not a surprise to anyone which presentations I was using, you know. Good old jerkbait right here. KVD 200 jerkbait. This is the chrome one because we have gotten inundated. If you remember watching the last video, there was actually some thunder in it. I had to record it, you know, inside in the tackle room, one of the few instances when I was not recording at the lake. And that's because it was a storm outside, you know. But the lake is good and muddy today. It's pretty washed out. So I used a chrome jerkbait. And mainly I was fishing it for the sound, but the chrome does help a little bit for the visual presentation. And of course, the other thing that I was working, obviously, was a wacky rig. You know, this is one of the worms that I make. This is the orange one. These are scented, these are salted, and they work great if you have the patience to work them the way that they need to be worked. Like we've talked about so many times in the past, working a wacky rig is a lesson in patience. You have got to be patient. Dead sticking is the name of the game. That's how you're going to get those bites. That's how you're going to get those strikes. But when it comes to locating those bass, especially in the winter, I don't care if you are on a northern fishery. I don't care if you're in Tennessee. I don't care if you're in Missouri. I don't care if you're in Kansas. I don't care if you're in California. There is a large population of bass that are actually up shallow. Now, where are they at up shallow? Well, they're in staging places, because even in places where the water's still only 40 or 45 degrees, those bass, they've got to answer the call of nature. They've got to heed their instinct, and they're already thinking about the pre-spawn. So they're moving up shallow and they're following the same migration routes that they use during the fall transition. See, bass follow the same paths. They're like us, right? They're creatures of habit. They follow the same highways in and out that they always have for generations. And if you can locate those pathways, if you can locate those bass routes on your particular fishery, so whenever those bass are migrating, when they're cruising from out deep to staging areas, to up shallow, to spawning, you can put yourself in prime location to catch fish. And a great number of those places that they're setting up, that they're staging, that they're relating to, they are shallow. They are definitely in distance to cast from the bank, as they are out here on the big lake. And I do it time and time again. All of the fish that you've seen me catch here in the past couple of months, with the exception of maybe 2, have been in super shallow water. And I'm talking 4 feet or less. All right, we'll try right here. All right, see what the wind decides it wants to do now. Now, it's supposed to be a steady wind out of the northwest today, and it has been swirly, swirly, swirly. Right now it's blowing out of the east. Well, northeast. Got him! Ooh, that's a pretty good fish. That's a pretty good fish right there. Tearing him up on the wacky rig, kids. Ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Come here, you. Come here, you. Get up in here. Oops. That's a nice fish right there, kids. That is a nice fish. That is a great fish right there. Okay, so the wacky rig is still the deal. Still the deal. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see here. 1 3/4 pounds. more than a pound and a half, probably close to a pound and 3/4 in that area. Appreciate it, buddy. Appreciate it, buddy. That is an amazing fish. The pre-spawn is happening. You know, look how gorgeous and green that fish is, how colored that fish is, and how aggressive that bite was. Thank you, dude. I really do appreciate it. And there he goes. And you've seen me catch them on wacky rigs. You've seen me catch them on Ned rigs. You've seen me catch them on jerk baits. You've seen me catch them on Texas rigs. You know, and a lot of times you can use a moving presentation. I like to start out with a jerk bait if I can, and I'm using that to cover water. Now, where am I looking at to begin with? Well, the mouths of pockets. That's where I'm starting. If I have a pocket, if I've got a creek arm, if I've got a channel swing bait, if I've got something that cuts inside away from the rest of the lake, something that if the wind may blow in there or it may be protected from the wind. But either way, those bass are going to be set up in the first third of that. I don't care how shallow it is. I don't care how deep it is. And chances are they're going to be spread out closer to the bank than they are out in the middle, especially if there is cover, there is vegetation. As an example, I'm looking for riprap banks. I'm looking for docks. I'm looking for those sorts of things. If I can find rock piles or brush piles, anything that's going to be dark and holding heat like we've talked about before. And on a bluebird day, like today was, right, that sun is going to be coming out and it's going to be warming up that water. If you've had a lot of rain, if you've got a lot of stain in that water, then that shallow water is going to be heating up a lot more quickly. And those bass are going to want to congregate to that. So they're not going to be out deep where that water is colder, especially as we turn the corner and we're heading rapidly towards spring. The days are getting longer. That means the lake is getting more exposure to that sun. Those sun rays are actually hitting the lake for a longer period of time every day, which means it's going to heat up even more and more. So those bass are going to migrate toward those warmer areas. And if you can find those warmer areas and the pathways to those warmer areas, then those are going to be your high percentage areas. Now, I'm still not going to be burning a crankbait, but I do know a lot of guys who are working a square bill. I do know a lot of guys who are working a lipless crank, and they work exceptionally well. You know, I've caught a couple on a lipless crank, and I've caught a couple on a small square bill, but I'm doing most of my damage with finesse techniques. That's what works for me. If you have confidence in something like a crankbait or a spinnerbait or a bladed jig, then use what you have confidence in. They can be exceptional ways, excellent ways to go out there and catch bass. But don't be afraid to look deep, because if people tell you, if anglers are telling you that all the bass are out deep, no, they're not. And you can go out to the lake and make some casts from the bank and show them that those fish are shallow. So there you have it. It's like we've always talked about. There's always a large population of bass that are up shallow. And bass fishing is not about luck. It's about you going out there and manufacturing bites. You 100% control your outcome whenever you're out on the water. You absolutely can manufacture bites. 365 days a year. I'm telling you, there's always a time when you can go out and catch bass, not only from the boat, but also from the bank, even in the dead of winter. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.